So welcome to my new old home. It's a couple hundred years old, and next to me is this absolutely lovely renovated, we think, I think those were very common in the Victorian times, the 19th century. So yeah, what an inspiring place to be practicing. So for those of you who are not guitarists, this probably next part is not that terribly exciting, but I'm going to keep it brief in case you are actually interested in listening to this part, because sometimes it's nice to know what goes on in practicing. It's not just, okay, I want to practice this over and over and over until I get it right. When I pick up a piece, I sight read it, go through it, then I'll sight read each section to get an idea what it feels and what it sounds like. And then I will work it maybe 3-4 bars at a time. Sometimes I will work, okay, this is, I have to be careful, I don't actually play backwards, but I will work backwards, meaning I'll look at a bar, say the music's there in a PDF, I don't know if, for example, if you're not a musician, you may look at the notes and it kind of looks like gibberish to you, but if I'm on bar 10, then, and I need to understand how I'm going to get to that part, well then maybe if I'm on bar 10, I might start on bar 11 and say, okay, well, how can I work that for the ending of bar 10? So I've had to find some right hand fingerings where I've actually had to go backwards a few steps to see if it works. Because sometimes you'll write a fingering in and you'll go, oh, that works. And then you get to the next measure and you'll go, whoops, that doesn't work. So it's always nice to kind of work backwards a bit. So anyway, so what I do is I did this first page in sections and I added my right hand fingerings. Bach is extremely complicated. And for those of you who do play classical guitar, you may see that sometimes I'll have a fingering on bar 7, and then after that it's not written in. The reason why is because it's the same pattern. That's the same pattern. And now I know I'm going to do a bar 8 an M and I alternation. Then it gets complicated. I can't do an M and I on those last 2 notes on bar 8 on I have to play an A, I, A, M, because it needs to set up for the next chord. So you do have to think about how these patterns work. It's very mathematical, actually. I find Bach to be very mathematical. And he does tend to do patterns that repeat 3 to 5 times. He's very much a numerologist. So whenever you have repeated patterns, it's important to try to do the same fingering pattern over and over, if it's possible. Sometimes the pesky cross stringings can ruin those patterns. So if you've got a third to first string, and if you were doing this lovely I and M alternation, you'll have to skip to an I and A, and that ruins that pattern. But generally, I try to do things like I avoid to play thumb on a straight melodic pattern. I try to just save it for the basis, but sometimes there's no other way to get out of a sticky situation, such as the end of bar 12. The very last note in bar 12, you'll notice that I put a P, which is your thumb. So I'm doing, getting me to bar 13. So I have to be careful not to play accent that last note, because the thumb is a heavy note. Okay, so that's some of my ideas on there. So those of you who may want to play this one day, feel free to keep this and you can use this for future. For those of you who are non-guitarists, something that is interesting on how a musician figures out their dynamics, what I am looking at is, even if you can't read music, if you look at, is this hill going up, meaning is the music going up, or is the music coming down? So you can look at the shapes of the music. So what I'm trying to do right now, because obviously I haven't been playing this very long, just a few days, is I'm trying to go up with the dynamic. I'm trying to go more loudly and crescendo, and then decrescendo on the descending hills. Sometimes, if I have this pattern on bar 7, I crescendoed to that. Like, it just felt like the music was creating this intensity and the repeated passage. Other things I like to do is look at the phrasing. So there's an interesting conversation between 2 phrases on bar 11. Let me see. Yeah, bar 11. That's phrase number 1. And then here's an answer. Okay, and then here's a question, here's an answer. Here's a question again, here's an answer, and then next. And then concludes. So there's some interesting little conversations going on between, say, the soprano, maybe, and the alto, having a little, oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's what it sounds like to me, is there's a little conversation going on between two people. The last bit of information for non-guitarists and guitarists alike is I play, obviously, with once I know what I'm doing and I've got the fingerings written in. Lucky for me, Mr. Frank Koonce here has written a lot of the left-hand fingerings already. So that takes a lot of the effort for me. I have changed some of his fingerings, but not many. You'll notice also those of you who play guitar, or maybe if you're not a guitar student, if you notice I was putting my thumb down. So I don't know if you can see that. Oh, wrong way. So I'm killing the bass strings. That is a very difficult technique to teach students. Is you don't always want harmony, even if it's not a rest. That, maybe to some of you it doesn't sound bad, but to a trained ear, having this A ringing through the G sounds a bit muddy. It's kind of like putting the pedal down on the piano and just leaving it for too long. So now what I did is I put my thumb right on there. So so you notice that you don't hear this ringing through the G. So that creates a bit of a dissonance. So that's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that goes on, especially in Bach. There's a lot of complicated harmonies and such, and you have to ask yourself. There's one spot I'm not really sure if I like the harmony ringing through each other, and that's on bar 6. You've got, but that's part of, this is a G7 chord, so it is part of the harmony. When I played it, I let everything ring, and then kept going. Or if I should go and cut that out. And so it's just those little nitpicky decisions that we have to make. For now, I'm allowing the F to stay, but I may decide to go. I have no idea if you can tell the difference between the two. Sometimes I ask my husband, like, what do you like better? And he'll say, I don't know. I can't tell the difference. So I think a lot of it is us players being exceptionally picky, maybe a little bit too picky. But for those of you who are students, those are some things you need to think about when you're looking at your music. To hold or not to hold, that is the question. That is definitely the question I ask myself a lot of times. So yes, dynamics are very important, and in the Baroque period, terrace dynamics, loud, soft, loud, are very common. Also following the melody, see the direction of the shape of it. The harmony, is the harmony getting more intense? Maybe you get more intense. Those kinds of things. Are there Baroque sighs? If you hear the tension and then the release. So there's all kinds of things that the Baroque period usually tend to follow for interpretation. But the term Baroque is supposed to be bizarre, ornamental, emotional, completely what we think is the opposite of what we think Baroque music should be played. A lot of people think we should be all reserved and very, we play Bach. But if you look at history, that is basically, the Baroque period was this crazy time of virtuosity and exploring harmonies and dissonances, and not at all the straight-laced, people that we think they were in the Baroque period. So once I've lived with the piece, and it's going to take a long time, I think that's when I'm going to start, where can I put some passion into it? Where can I do some really extreme dynamics with it? If I can do a little rubato. So I don't know if you could see, but I was wearing earphones, and I'm keeping it at 52 today. I mean, I started at 35, and I worked up to 52 equals 2/8 notes. I can obviously play a lot of it faster than that, but as Bodwego used to tell us students, and I've imparted that wisdom to my students, if you can play well slowly, you will be able to play fast very well as well. Okay, so if you can play slow well, then you can play anything quickly. But if you can't play it cleanly slowly, it's not going to happen at speed. So I'm a firm believer in working a lot of this music slowly and methodically, and then speed will come after you really. Plus, I don't want to add the dynamics later after I've upped the speed to the point where it's hard to change anything. Plus, you tend to memorize as you learn these. It is muscle memory, but it is still part of one of the memories. So I think that kind of gives you an idea into the mind of someone learning music.